Welcome to another edition of Bet with Bobano, Wednesday, July 17th, in the middle of the slowest period of the entire sports year as the MLB All-Star break. We had the All-Star game last night, but the All-Star break continues for another 2 days. And then we have, of course, the return to the regular season in Major League Baseball on Friday. And, of course, the CFL this week doesn't start till Friday, so it's a very, very quiet couple of days, unless you're betting WNBA and NBA Summer League, which I am not. And we do have the Olympics right around the corner, and I might be dabbling in that a little bit. But just like yesterday's show, the focus will be NFL today, and we will be previewing another division in the NFC. We've done the NFC East and the NFC North this week already here on Bet with Bobano. And today we will be looking at the NFC South division taking place on this show today. And the NFC South division might be the worst division in the NFL this year. But the one thing that's cool about it is it's wide open. It's there for the taking. Anyone can win it. Even a team that you may not think so may have a chance to win that division. And I'll get to that in just a moment. Before we get into our NFC South preview, and I will give you a couple thoughts too, after consulting with my good golf friends and golf sources. I'll give you a few outright shots that I took with the Open Championship, which gets underway overnight tonight in Scotland. And, of course, the final major of the golf season. So we'll give you a few golf thoughts as well on the show today. But we will begin with our NFC North preview. Actually, before we get into that, we do have to do all the promos, get all the business taken care of first. A reminder, 6 months all sports discount, $400 down to $250 US. Now through January, if you sign up today, you'll be good till January the 17th, 2025, which means you'll get the entire NFL regular season, college football season, a good chunk of the beginning portion of the NHL, NBA, and college basketball season, the rest of the MLB season, all of that and more for signing up at for the 6 months all sports discount at Dub Club. $400 down to $250 US. Terrific football season last year. 22.2 units of profit, $22,200 profit combined in NFL and college football last season, and definitely looking to duplicate that. And a reminder, exclusively at Dub Club, the NFL season win totals and futures betting report will be posted for members August the 1st. So get on board now with the 6 months all sports discount for the remainder of this week as well, now through Sunday. Now through Monday, I should say, next week. The birthday week promo codes are still in effect for the Dub Club subscriptions as well. For the other options, the 1 month, 3 month, and 1 year subscription packages. So 1 month all sports, $39 off because I just turned 39 years old. The birthday promo code in effect through the end of the weekend. 1 month all sports, $75 down to $36 for 1 month all sports. 3 months all sports down from $200 to $161. Again, $39 off the regular price. And 1 year all sports, $750 down to $711. Again, $39 off the regular price. And those three discounts are valid and available until the end of the weekend at Dub Club. And last but not least, SoBet, the new subscription home for me, which is going to be strictly a place where you can sign up to get only my short card on a daily basis, just isolating my top plays and best bets each day at SoBet. It is only $9.95 per month to sign up at SoBet. I will post the link right there now on the screen. There it is, right there for you. And again, this is a $9.95 monthly subscription. And with that $9.95 per month subscription at SoBet, you'll also get access to all the other content providers and handicappers that post plays on the SoBet platform, SoBet app. So there it is. There's the link. It's also available on my Twitter X account at Bobano Bets. You'll be able to find the link there. $9.95 per month subscription. And again, the SoBet subscription is only my top plays and best bets on the board each and every day in all sports. If you want the full card, because I am a high volume bettor, that will remain exclusive to the Dub Club subscriptions that I mentioned earlier. So that's that. Make sure you sign up, get on board. Let's get into some NFC South division talk. Like I said, this is not the most glamorous division in the NFL coming into the season, anything but certainly there's going to be opportunity for any of these teams to probably emerge victorious here as far as the NFC South is concerned. We'll begin with the Atlanta Falcons. And the Atlanta Falcons obviously have had awful, terrible quarterback play. Offense that just has been bogged down by the quarterback position, even though there's been times that they've had the skill position talent. They've had the likes of Kyle Pitts at tight end. They've had the likes of Drake London at receiver. They've had some good skill position talent, the Atlanta Falcons, but the quarterback position too often has done them in. You look at their recent results. Since 2018, this franchise has not won more than 7 games in the regular season. 7-9, 7-9, 4-12, 7-10, 7-10, 7-10. They've actually finished 7-10, 3 straight seasons. The Atlanta Falcons coming into this year. Obviously, they've had to deal with the mediocrity of Taylor Heineke and Desmond Ridder, and I was never sold on Desmond Ridder being an effective, bona fide number 1 quarterback, and basically pretty much proved me right. So they went out and they got the old veteran, Kirk Cousins. And look, I've got my Kirk Cousins issues. Make no mistake about it. We are talking about a quarterback that, in the big games hasn't played well. Sometimes it's just his lack of mobility hurts him, takes too many sacks. He's had some injuries. But he's also very good when he gets time to throw the football. And he's shown he can be a good quarterback when he gets time to throw the football. And he can be an accurate passer as well. He gets time to throw the football. He can be an accurate quarterback, but will he get that with this Atlanta Falcons team? They brought him in. They spent $100 million on him. Keep in mind, next month, this guy turns 36. He's coming off a torn Achilles injury as well. So how much are they going to get out of Kirk Cousins at this stage of his career? It's a major, major question mark. And look, I understand the need to upgrade from Desmond Ridder. I totally get that. Who wouldn't think that you need to upgrade after what you saw from that guy? But at the same point in time, you're putting your eggs in the basket of a 36-year-old quarterback that, hasn't won big games in the majority of his career either. So we'll see how that goes. Their insurance policy was drafting Michael Penix out of Washington. Obviously, a phenomenal college quarterback, especially at Washington. You can't say really at Indiana he was that great. He was inconsistent there, but that's also where he had some injury situations. Obviously, he took off at Washington and had 2 tremendous seasons there with Kalen DeBoer with the Washington Huskies. So obviously, they bring in Michael Penix because in case of an injury to Cousins, you've at least got him there and a guy that you can look at as maybe the long-term number 1 quarterback. You get 2-3 good years, hopefully, out of Cousins, and then you can always pivot to Michael Penix and hope he's developed by that point in time in order to become the quarterback you're hoping for, the quarterback this franchise is looking for and, quite frankly, desperately needs. Again, it's going to be interesting to see how they fare because there's a lot of people that question this team for drafting Michael Penix Jr. at 8th overall, because if you're drafting him at 8th overall, you just signed Kirk Cousins for $100 million. You're basically already telling Michael Penix, well, 2 years from now minimum, 3 years from now minimum, you might be looking at being the starting quarterback of this team. So that's what was head-scratching about Atlanta's approach, that they signed Cousins and then obviously end up, drafting, Michael Penix Jr. So when there's a lot of needs on this team outside of the quarterback position as well. So, again, they bring in Cousins, who's older and often torn Achilles, and yet they still draft Penix. It's just very, very questionable why they did that and how they did that. We'll have to wait and see, because if you look at the skill position talent, Drake London's a great receiver. Darnell Mooney's been kind of a disappointment here in Atlanta since they got him from Chicago. Rondale Moore's here, former Arizona Cardinal, of course, Purdue Boilermaker in college football. Got really underrated speed, good in the open field. Hoping he can make an impact. Kyle Pitts, I keep saying, feed him the ball, give him more opportunities to make plays, and you can end up, having this be a better offense. But Drake London should be better with a better quarterback throwing him the football. And if Cousins gets time to throw, he is still a better quarterback than Desmond Ridder. There's no denying that. Kyle Pitts, who's supposed to have this big, high ceiling, hasn't really fared well yet. That'll be interesting to see how that goes. Atlanta, of course, I think their number 1 playmaker on offense is their running back, Bijan Robinson. I mean, this is clearly a guy that has shown how electrifying he can be. You know, to me, there was way too much of a deferral to other running backs, Cordero Patterson, Algier, others. I mean, feed Bijan Robinson. This guy is a phenomenal talent. I think he showed that last year. Just commit to giving him the football more often than maybe you did last year, and you're going to be a better offense for it. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can make that adjustment. Of course, I've got to admit right off the hop, I don't love this head coaching hire at all. I understand moving on from Arthur Smith. I get it. Very underwhelming returns for the job he did with Atlanta. The guy you're going to replace him with is Raheem Morris. Raheem Morris hasn't been any good as a head coach in the past. What track record of success does Raheem Morris have in terms of head coaching success? I have questions about that, quite honestly. So, I don't love the head coaching hire. Again, this offense does have potential, though. I mean, Bijan Robinson is a great running back. I think he's established that. They've got Drake London leading the receiving core. Kyle Pitts, I think maybe his best year yet because the quarterback situation has been upgraded. The O-line's been a concern for Atlanta over the last few years, but Jake Matthews, McGarry, the two tackles have really, really improved. Matthews not getting any younger, but he's been pretty solid at his position here the last few seasons for the Atlanta Falcons. That's going to be interesting to see. The interior of the offensive line, when they're healthy. Again, they did have some injury issues last year. Chris Lindstrom, for instance, who's one of the better guards in the NFL. He had some injury issues the last couple of years. If they keep that group together, they should be able to run the football better this year. They should be able to protect better this year for Kirk Cousins, who needs to have stable pass protection and a solid O-line in front of him in order to be effective. And I think there's reasons to like this Atlanta offense coming into this season. There's no question. When you look at who they brought in too as the offensive coordinator, he's a young guy, Zach Robinson. That's a guy that actually played college football a long time ago with the Oklahoma State Cowboys. We'll see how he fares running this offense, but it's a guy that worked in the LA Rams organization the last few years under a great coach in Sean McVay, quarterback coach, receiver coach, pass game coordinator and quarterback coach the last couple of seasons there with McVay with the Rams. So he's learned from a good guy. So that's why I think there's potential here for this offense. Zach Robinson leading it as a first-time offensive coordinator here for the Atlanta Falcons. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. Meanwhile, on the defensive side of the football for the Atlanta Falcons, we know they've had their share of issues, I guess you could say, on the defensive side of the football in years past. You still wonder who is going to be the predominant pass rusher for this team. They were okay last year, but again, they don't have that dominant pass rusher this team, and I still don't think they have one coming into this season. So we'll have to see how it goes for them. When you look at the secondary, AJ Terrell's excellent, but the other positions in that secondary are a little bit shaky. At the safety spot, they've got Jesse Bates, who's very good. But again, there's some question marks outside of that that you'd probably be a little bit concerned about. I think when you look at the defensive line here for the Atlanta Falcons, it's not great. Really isn't great, if you ask me. Zach Harrison, he's going to have to play better. Calais Campbell left and signed with Miami. You look at David Onyemata, Grady Jarrett, another guy that's been injured, it seems, year in and year out for this team. Onyemata, pretty good, but again, and Jarrett, again, very good when he's healthy, but he's older. He's been banged up. How good is he going to be? Bottom line is there's a lot of big-time question marks still with the Atlanta Falcons as far as their defense is concerned. Caden Ellis, we'll have to wait and see how he fares leading this linebacking core. The couple of the other guys stepped up, but to me, there's a lot of questions still on the defensive side of the football. And Raheem Morris, the head coach, is a defensive guy. They brought him in to help that. He's going to not call the plays. He brought in his own As far as this goes. But Jimmy Lake is going to be the defensive coordinator here for Raheem Morris with the Atlanta Falcons. You got to hope he's a better defensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons than he was head coach at Washington in college football a couple of years ago. Although he is known to be pretty solid as far as defensive background is concerned. So maybe we won't hold the debacle of his tenure as Washington Huskies head coach against Jimmy Lake, but it'll be interesting to see if he can be a good defensive coordinator with this group. There's a lot of people that say on paper this is the most talented team in the division, that they should win this division. I'm going to need to see it before I believe it. This is a team that has not won more than 7 games since 2017. They have won 7 games, 5 of the last 6 seasons, and then the other season they didn't win 7 games, they won 4. And yet somehow this team's win total, 9.5, I ain't buying it. For me, under 9.5 wins would be the look. Kirk Cousins staying healthy for a full season, I'm not sure I buy that, coming off a torn Achilles. And the offense should be good if he's healthy. And even though I think Michael Penix long-term has the stuff to be pretty solid NFL quarterback, if he gets thrown into the fire with Cousins getting injured, I don't think he's going to be great and light it up right away at this stage. And the defense still has a lot of question marks. And I got to admit, I don't like the hire. I don't love the Raheem Morris hire. I think they could have done so much better than that, quite honestly. So for me, I would only look under 9.5. I want no part of their division future to win the NFC South. I mean, to me, there's not any value with Atlanta. I mean, they are being priced as the favorite here. Minus 120 they are to win this division. We'll get into some other teams that I just think from a pure value standpoint, it's much more worth it to take a shot with them to win the division at a plus price than Atlanta. I don't think Atlanta should be that heavily favored. Like they're minus 120 to win the NFC South, and the other 3 teams are plus 300 or better. I don't think Atlanta is that much better than anybody else in this division. So as you can tell, I am very skeptical on this Atlanta Falcons team when it's all said and done. I'm going to need to see it before I believe it. All right, the Carolina Panthers next up. Obviously disaster last year. 2-15, terrible, brutal, awful season. Horrendous football team. Just pathetic, really. And obviously last year, Frank Reich shown the door. Chris Tabor took over at the end of the season. And then, of course, now they bring in Dave Canales as the new head coach of the Carolina Panthers, a guy that's been working as the offensive coordinator with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year. And then he was with Seattle and Pete Carroll in their offensive coaching staff before that. Look, he's 43 years old. He's a young guy. Tampa Bay wasn't a phenomenal offense last year under him as the OC, but I like the fact they're giving him a shot. And you compare. Look, I think I know what I'm getting from Raheem Morris, and that's a lot of mediocrity. Maybe it's going to be no good with Canales here in Carolina, but I'd rather take a shot hiring someone that maybe has some upside that gives him a chance for success than a known commodity that I think is going to struggle. That's kind of where I feel. I feel Carolina made a better head coaching hire than Atlanta. Now, that doesn't mean Carolina is immediately going to be better than Atlanta because this is still a personnel situation, which is very problematic here with this team, and that's something they're going to have to overcome. But, I like that they gave this guy a chance. Obviously, last year it was a horrible year all around, and it was horrible for nobody more so than Bryce Young. Bryce Young out of Alabama in college, and they expected him to be the guy, the franchise quarterback, and he showed no signs at any point last year in year 1 that he was going to be ready to be a franchise number 1 quarterback here in the NFL. But they hired Dave Canales, a young offensive mind to try to help, produce better results, although Brad Idzik is going to be the offensive coordinator here for the Carolina Panthers, but I'm sure Dave Canales will obviously have a lot of input on how the offense goes. Can he get more out of Bryce Young? Keep in mind, Dave Canales with Seattle 2 years ago got a phenomenal season out of Geno Smith. Last year got the best season in years out of Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay. Dave Canales was on the offensive coaching staff with both of those teams. So there is a possibility here that maybe Canales can work with Bryce Young, get more out of him. And look, it's not all on Bryce Young. The offensive line was pathetic last year for this Carolina team. They couldn't open up holes for the run game. They couldn't pass protect consistently enough. Just horrendous numbers. They were one of the absolute worst offensive lines in the NFL last year. There's no debate about that whatsoever. That didn't help Bryce Young's development either. The good news for them is they spent some money on the O-line. They know we had to rebuild this O-line. It's too important to just let it go to waste and not address it. And Carolina really tried to do that. They bring in two really good guards, Robert Hunt, Damian Lewis. Those two guys are going to help. They're big upgrades. They couldn't pass protect at all. Those two guys are going to help. And I think their tackles are, guys that I think will get better. They've got Ekwonu in one of the tackle spots, very highly thought of, a high ceiling. That didn't play great last year, but still a very young guy that you think has a chance to improve in his second year. And then the other tackle, Taylor Moton. I mean, I think definitely when you look at this O-line, there's no way you can deny right now that on paper it's better situation for this O-line starting this season than it was at any point last year. No question about that. Now the center position, we'll see. It's going to be interesting to see how they plug that hole because they did have issues there. But definitely 4 of the 5 spots on the O-line are definitely upgraded and better this year, in my opinion, than last year. That should help Bryce Young. I think obviously the change in offensive coaching staff should help. I actually think he's going to have, I don't want to say a great year. I don't want to go that far, get that carried away. And there's still an element of, I got to see it before I believe it with the O-line improving. I've got to see it before I believe it with Bryce Young improving. But at the same time, I do think there's potential here for at least modest, if not quite a bit of improvement from the offense. And I'm not asking Carolina to go from having a terrible offense to an elite offense. I'm asking them to go from a terrible offense to a league average offense, maybe even slightly above average. And if they do that, that is still a huge improvement from where they were last year, in my opinion. The receiving core, I think they've upgraded that because, look, Adam Thielen was here last year. Too much was relied on him, but they bring in Deontay Johnson from the Pittsburgh Steelers. They end up drafting Xavier Legette in the NFL draft. Huge potential for him, no question about that. So all of a sudden, there's a few more weapons now, with Deontay Johnson, with Adam Thielen, Xavier Legette. Jonathan Mingo, I think, showed some glimpses last year as well for this group. See if he can become a little bit more consistent, along with Terrace Marshall, Tommy Tremble, the tight end. So a little more weapons. The running back tandem, it's probably going to be Chuba Hubbard once again, at the running back spot, serviceable. We'll have to wait and see. Jonathan Brooks coming off a torn ACL. We'll have to see if he can bounce back. So there are big-time questions with the running back group for Carolina. But like I said, they're in and Miles Sanders, of course, who they brought from Philadelphia. Can he stay healthy? That's going to be a big question mark here as well for this Carolina team coming into the season. But I think the offense will be better. It's just a question of how much better. And how much better will the O-line be? And how much better will Bryce Young be in particular? When you look at the defense, there are concerns here. I will admit that. One of their best pass rushers last year was Brian Burns. He was traded to the New York Giants, so he's gone, and that's a huge loss as far as getting a pressure on opposing quarterbacks. They didn't have a lot as far as a consistent pass rush outside of Brian Burns last year. You're going to have to wait and see. There's a couple guys that are going to have to step up. Jadeveon Clowney, I mean, he's very inconsistent. He's older now. He's going to have to step up his pressure numbers and his pass rush ability this year to help that group. The linebacking core, there's a couple key pieces as well that end up having to replace them. We'll have to wait and see. The good news is they did bring in Josie Jewell here, who comes over from Denver, pretty good in that linebacking core. So Shaq Thompson there. I mean, those are two pretty good players, but depth is a concern at that linebacking core. And in the secondary, when you look at it, in the Deontay Johnson trade with the Steelers. They lost Dante Jackson. It'll be interesting to see how they fare here. But when you look at this secondary, up and down, J.C. Horn, who's been expected to be a big-time cornerback for this team, had injuries early in his career, finally stayed a little bit more healthy last year and had a very good season for this Carolina team. Dane Jackson comes over from the Buffalo Bills to give them a little bit of depth. But there are still some questions. Jordan Fuller from the Rams brought in. He's pretty solid. Xavier Woods. So, the secondary could be a lot worse. Again, though, it's going to be very interesting to see with the loss of Dante Jackson. Jackson was, the other side of J.C. Horn, and they're going to have to find a number 2 corner that's going to be able to play well there. Is Dane Jackson from Buffalo going to be the answer? I'm not sure. Jordan Fuller and Xavier Woods, I think, is a very good secondary spot. There's no doubt. When you look at it, Derek Brown, I like on their defensive line. There are some question marks there outside of that. I got to admit, the defense does worry me. I actually think, you look at this Carolina team, they actually could be a good over team as far as their game totals this year. Terrible offense last year, and we know a lot of their games were lower scoring just because they couldn't do enough on the offensive side of the football. They couldn't move the football. They had to settle for field goals or punt the ball way too much. I think their offense could take not just a jump in terms of improvement, but maybe a significant jump in terms of improvement. So while the defense actually might be even a tad worse than it was last year during their 2-15 seasons. So this might be a good, especially if you're going to get totals, in the lower 40s in the Carolina Panthers games this year. They might be worth looking at towards the over. They've got an excellent field goal kicker, too. Keep that in mind. Eddie Piñeiro's excellent. He's very accurate. He's been very good from long distance. Carolina's not going to have to drive much further than the 40, 45-yard line to give their kicker a legit chance to put 3 points on the board. So keep that in mind when it comes to betting Carolina this year. The defense does worry me. They'll definitely be a more competitive team. But Dave Canales did good things with both Geno Smith in Seattle and Baker Mayfield last year in Tampa Bay to think this team could be not just a little bit better. They could be like 4 or 5 wins maybe better than they were last year. More so because of the division they play in. Like there's not a single world beater team in this division. Not a one. Atlanta ain't it. Tampa ain't it. New Orleans ain't it. Why not Carolina maybe surprising a little bit here? Because I think they made a very solid hire. You look at the season win total market for this team right now. Carolina lined at 5.5 wins. I don't mind taking a shot over 5.5. I mean, they'd have to be 6-11 to cash a ticket. 6-11 or better. I think it's very possible Carolina can be 6-11 or better. Atlanta, I don't think is as good as people think. We'll get to New Orleans next. I have big concerns about them. Tampa Bay, pretty good season last year, but I wonder if they'll regress a little bit. I think that does open a door for Carolina. And I know even though Carolina was 2-15 last year, terrible. We have seen evidence before in this league of teams going from worst to first in one season in their own division. And if there's anybody's capable of doing, if there's one division that it's very possible for a team to go from last to first in one season, it's this division because it's so fucking mediocre. And there's not a single above average team, I think, in this division. Not a one. Atlanta, New Orleans, Carolina, Tampa. So I think the fact you can bet upwards of 11, 12 to 1 for Carolina to win the NFC South, I even think that's worth a couple of bucks. And I do like Carolina over 5.5 wins this season. All right, next up, we've got the New Orleans Saints, 9-8 last year. You look at what they're going through, obviously. Derek Carr was signed to the big contract prior to last year. They thought they had the guy to replace Drew Brees, and Derek Carr was Derek Carr. Just not good enough. Too many interceptions, too much bogging down in the red zone and failing to finish drives with touchdowns. And in terms of being able to make the big play and the big moment in a close game, he was never able to do that for the New Orleans Saints offense last year. But look, they had a bad issue in their O-line. Their left and right tackle position was a detriment, a liability last year. There's no question. And then Ryan Ramczyk, who's always been one of their better O-linemen all these years with New Orleans, his injury, that he suffered to keep him out probably of most of this season, if not the entire season, is it's just disastrous for New Orleans because they don't have a lot of quality depth along the O-line coming into this season. And for Ryan Ramczyk to already be in a situation where, the season's basically fucked and done, that is just so unfortunate. The good news is they at least addressed it in the draft. The 14th overall pick, Taliasi Fuaga, was drafted to help this O-line. We'll see how he fares here. Probably be a good candidate to replace Ramczyk. But again, we're talking about a rookie, a lineman. You never know. That's never a given that they're going to be able to thrive and play well immediately. That's something to keep in mind. But they still have holes on the O-line. There is no question. The guard issues are concerning. Just absolutely, there's no one that played any good in the guard positions last year. I mean, this O-line's just a glaring hole for them right now. And then you got a quarterback that when he doesn't have good protection, he's mistake prone, as Derek Carr has proven to be. And that's just not a very good combination for offensive success, at least not in my opinion. You look at the receiving core. We love Chris Olave out of Ohio State. Of course, he's been great for them, no doubt. But who else is going to be the guys to step up for them consistently? They've got A.T. Perry, Cedric Wilson, Equanimous St. Brown. These are all guys that have been, basically bounced around from other teams in the NFL. They did show some glimpses of promise from Rashid Shaheed last year as well. But again, they're going to need some of these guys to be consistent for Derek Carr and help out Chris Olave. There's no doubt. And then you look at the running back spot for the Saints. And again, it seems like every year we're talking about Alvin Kamara staying healthy for 17 games. And now the question is, can he stay healthy? And how much the offense revolves around him? There's been so many times where Alvin Kamara comes back and all of a sudden New Orleans looks like a very good, very functional offense. And then he's out and he doesn't play, and it looks like it's the complete opposite. That is how much it has been important the last couple of years, what they're able to get from Alvin Kamara in terms of being able to stay healthy. He always seems to get hurt. He always seems to miss a significant portion of the season. He's missed 10 games in the last 3 years. He's now almost going to be 30 years old. Can you count on this guy to be there week in and week out for 17 games this season? That's going to be the big question that the New Orleans Saints are going to have to try to deal with this year with the running back position. The defensive situation, we know the O-line's questionable. We know Derek Carr is not a quarterback we can trust. So there's not great depth in the receiving core. There's questions that your number one running back, can he stay healthy? I mean, the O-line, the offensive side of the football is just absolutely fucking littered with question marks and concerns for me for this New Orleans Saints team. So now you flip it to the defense. Can they step their game up if the offense is going to struggle? And when I look at it, the pass rush for the New Orleans Saints was not there, was not consistent last year, and their answer to try to address the pass rush is Chase Young, and that's not an answer to me. That's just not an answer. Young has been overrated from day one. He didn't do a thing in Washington. San Francisco brought him in for the playoff stretch last year. And what did Chase Young do for the San Francisco 49ers? Bubkiss, dick all. That's what he did. He's had injury issues galore. I don't think he's as mobile, as fluid. I don't think he's as agile now because he's been debilitated by all these injuries that he's suffered. And that is the guy that the New Orleans Saints have pegged to help turn around their struggling pass rush. I don't buy it. I don't think he is the answer for their struggling pass rush, not by any stretch of the imagination. I get it. When you look at it, Cameron Jordan slowed down for them in years past. There's no question. We'll have to wait and see. They're gonna need some of their interior guys to really be that thrust to get after the quarterback. The kid out of Clemson, Brian Breeze, who actually played pretty solid last year. We'll have to see if the other guys can step up. But, the fact that you think Chase Young is going to be someone that's really going to help your pass rush. After what we have seen out of him the last few years is kind of mind-boggling to me. So again, I don't think I think the pressure rate for this team on the opposing quarterback is not going to be there, not going to be consistent again. And what that means is it's going to put a lot of duress and a lot of concern on the secondary. And when you look at that secondary, it's kind of like Alvin Kamara with the running back position. Kamara on the field, the offense is functional. Kamara off the field and injured, and the New Orleans offense takes a huge hit. You could say the same thing about the New Orleans defense with Marshawn Lattimore, the great cornerback. He can be one of the best cornerbacks from a pure ability standpoint. He's got it. There's no question. But Marshawn Lattimore for this Saints team, too often than not, he's missed too much time due to injury, the last few years. So let's see if he can stay healthy this year. Again, that's going to be a big question mark for this New Orleans Saints team. It seems like every year we're wondering if they could get through the season with him being able to stay healthy. But the good news is, they've got Kool-Aid McKinstry, a guy they drafted, who obviously had a terrific college career. Can he be the boost and the bolster of the secondary that they need? That's going to end up being a big could be big for this Saints team if McKinstry can really step up. Paulson Adebo, I should say. We'll have to see if he can play well again this year. The safety spot, they've got Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, but geez, this is not the same Honey Badger and Tyrann Mathieu a few years ago when he was with Arizona, when he was with Kansas City. Just not the same player. The guy that's now well into his 30s. How much great production, how many great years does he have left in him? Probably not as many anymore. So you're putting your eggs in the basket of an older safety, at the safety position right now for the New Orleans Saints. And again, we've got a lower level draft pick in the other spot, in the safety spot. So that's going to be the big concerns. The good news is linebackers are pretty good. They get Willie Gay from Kansas City. Demario Davis is terrific. Pete Werner's been very good for them. That's actually probably a good position for them. But so the linebacking core, I don't mind it for New Orleans. But man, there are big questions on the D-line. There's even bigger questions with the pass rush. And there's questions in the secondary because you don't know if you're going to get 17 games out of Marshawn Lattimore. And as much as Kool-Aid McKinstry was great in college, and he absolutely was, make no mistake about it, we saw the level of ability he was able to play with Nick Saban at Alabama. He was a difference maker in the pass defense. Can he be good right away for the New Orleans Saints as a rookie is the big question. So as you can tell, and then I haven't even gotten to the thing I hate the most about, or I don't like the most about New Orleans, and that's their head coach. Dennis Allen is not a NFL head coach that I trust. Simple as that. His overall record as a head coach is not good. He has not done a great job with this team. Game management has been an issue. Penalties have been a problem. Undisciplined play from his team. I have not been a fan of Dennis Allen and what he's done with this group. This is now going to be his third full season as a head coach for the New Orleans Saints. 16-18 in 2 years with New Orleans. You want to know what his overall head coaching record is if you include the disaster of the 2.5 years he was in Oakland? 24-46. That's his head coaching record between the Oakland Raiders and the New Orleans Saints combined. Dennis Allen has a head coaching record of 24-46. I don't trust him. I don't like this team. I could only look under their win total. Derek Carr with a bad O-line in front of him, I don't trust. Why can't Carolina be better than this team? Why can't Carolina beat the New Orleans Saints in week 1? You don't even have to have a subscription to any of my services right now for me to let you know that in week 1, I'll be on the Carolina Panthers against this New Orleans Saints team. I am not laying 5 points with the New Orleans Saints. I know it's in the Superdome. I know it's a home game, but they've not been phenomenal at home in recent years. You remember last year in week 1, they played Tennessee at home. What did they do? Escape with like a 1-point win? Something like that. The offense didn't work. The offense didn't play well, and they escaped by the skin of their fucking teeth, beating the Tennessee Titans in week 1 last year at home. This Carolina team, or this New Orleans team, barely beat Tennessee at home in week 1. Why can't Carolina hang in that game? And the reason why you're getting 5 with Carolina is because that's a little bit of a 2-15 from last year power rating that they've attached to the Carolina Panthers, even though I do think they're going to be better, and I just don't think very much of New Orleans. So I like New Orleans under their win total. I don't think they win this division. I certainly am not as interested in them winning this division as Carolina or the next team we'll talk about. And like I said, in week 1, I would only look to Carolina +5 against New Orleans in that matchup in the NFC South. All right, our final team preview here in the NFC South. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Obviously, last year, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were the division winners. It was actually considering the fact that, Baker Mayfield was the starting quarterback. We had all kinds of questions about Baker Mayfield last year. We got to give Tampa Bay credit. He came in and he had a bounce back season. 28 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. He threw for north of 4,000 passing yards. Very solid numbers overall for Baker Mayfield. It's a resurgent season for him, no doubt. And you got to give him a lot of credit. But here we go. And I mentioned how much I thought Dave Canales played a role in Baker Mayfield's turnaround last year. Dave Canales is gone now. He's the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. So he's gone. They have to go to a new offensive coordinator. Liam Cohen is going to take over that job this year for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And this is a guy that was an offensive coordinator for the Rams under McVay for 1 year. He's been an offensive coordinator for Mark Stoops for 2 seasons with Kentucky in college football, including last year. And now here he is as the OC here with Tampa. What does that tell you? They're going to run the football a lot because I'll tell you what, McVay always wants to incorporate the run game in his offenses. Kentucky in college football, they aren't a chuck the football all over the field, pass-heavy offense. They've never have been that way. So they're going to be looking to run the football quite a bit. It's going to be a run-heavy offense. So that means if you're Tampa Bay, do you have the run game to execute this kind of an offense? Well, when you look at the running back group here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you've got Rachaad White, you got Bucky Irving, you've got Chase Edmonds, your top 3. Obviously, Rachaad White's going to be your number 1 running back, no question. Will he be able to stay out? Another guy that, at times has had some injury issues, but again, he's pretty solid for them. We'll see how he fares here. Again, Mike Evans, 31 years old. He drops a lot of passes. That's a concern. And he could drop even, there were some routine throws, routine catches that Mike Evans would drop last year. So he's got to improve with that. There's no question. Chris Godwin's production went down last year. Can he maybe have a little bit of a bounce back season? That's going to end up being the question mark as well. A lot of their receivers, they're aging a bit. So you're going to need more out of Trey Palmer, Jalen McMillan, who is a guy that obviously they have a great deal of hope for, drafting him from Washington in that prolific passing game that Jalen McMillan was part of with Michael Penix with the Huskies. They're going to hope Jalen McMillan can pop for them at wide receiver. Cade Otton is a very good tight end. I do like him. He'll be the number 1 tight end for them this year. The offensive line, they did draft Graham Barton. He should help. Big upgrade. They had some issues in the interior of the O-line last year, so that should definitely help a little bit. The tackle play, you look at it, Tristan Wirfs, keep in mind, injury last year for him. Healthy again should help that tackle position for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Other than going to Liam Cohen, first-time NFL offensive coordinator, even though he's been a college offensive coordinator, the offense should still be solid, but how much of last year was Baker Mayfield physically and mentally and just him playing at a higher level, and how much of it was Canales, who is now no longer there? How much did he contribute to the turnaround in Baker Mayfield? That's really what you have to ask yourself, because if you thought Dave Canales had a huge part in Baker Mayfield's resurgence last year, then you'd be worried about Baker Mayfield maybe regressing all over again here this year in 2024. On the defense, obviously, look, Defense was obviously terrific when Tom Brady was here years ago. No question. The defense wasn't really as good last year. It's funny. A lot of games last year, they needed a lot more out of Baker Mayfield in the offense to win games because the defense just wasn't phenomenal by any stretch of the imagination. You look at the secondary last year, they had all kinds of issues there last year. Lack of depth, injuries mounted. Carlton Davis wasn't the same player. Jamel Dean got injured. Sean Murphy-Bunting got injured last year in that secondary for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And you could tell, especially when Murphy-Bunting and Jamel Dean both went down to injury. Those were big-time issues for them. I love Antoine Winfield Jr. There's no question about that. Great player. But again, they're going to need a little bit more health, in that secondary this year because that was an area of concern last year. Antoine Winfield and Jordan Whitehead, both of those guys are outstanding safeties. There's no question. But again, I think the secondary, you're going to have to hope for definitely more more health this year. A lot of youth now is going into that secondary as well. A lot more younger faces and inexperience because Carlton Davis struggled last year, but he's no longer there. That's going to be interesting to see how it goes for this Tampa Bay team as far as the secondary, if it can bounce back. The pass rush from this group last year was hit or miss, start and stop, as far as that's concerned. There's no question. When you look at it last year, they were a bottom 10 team as far as getting pressure on opposing quarterbacks. They really struggled to get guys to, get a huge consistent pressure rate on the opposing QB. That's something that's going to have to change, and I'm not sure if they have the personnel right now in place to be able to improve on that quite a bit. You look at it, the linebacking core, Devin White, he signed with the Eagles, so they lose him. They still have Levante David. They still have KJ Britt. But again, these are guys that are getting, a little, Levante David's definitely getting a little older. He's into his mid-30s. That's definitely something you've got to be a little bit concerned about here as well. Vita Vea is a Pro Bowl caliber nose tackle. But again, he's also had his moments where he's been out of the lineup because he's been hurt. It'll be interesting to see how the other guys play along that D line because the guys they've drafted the last couple of years, they haven't exactly played well. They haven't exactly, gotten acclimated at a high level to playing on that D line. So that's something you've got to watch out for. So there are still some questions on defense. I think their offense, you look at it, there's not a huge difference as far as the personnel from last year, other than the fact that, look, can Baker play that well again? This is a guy that struggled and was not very good, downright awful at times. And then last year, he has this bounce back, comeback season, leads his team to a division crown, leads his team into the playoffs. And are we just ready to assume Baker's back and he's going to be able to play that well again, especially when his OC is now gone? I'm not so sure. I still think this team is probably a contender in the division. Hell, everyone in this division's a contender because I don't think anyone's good enough to separate from the other. But you look at last year, they had a lot of the wins that they had. They won 9 games last year, but a lot of the wins they had were the lucky, fortunate variety. And you look at the division around them. Say what you will about my concerns about the Atlanta hire. Talent-wise, it's still there for Atlanta. They're going to be, a team that Tampa's going to have to deal with. I think Carolina, as I mentioned, is definitely going to improve this year, potentially quite a bit. And that means that's going to take some wins away from Tampa Bay here in the division. That being said, I don't have a strong over or under opinion on Tampa Bay as far as their win total. You look at it right now, it's 7.5. They won 9 last year. I don't think they're winning 9 games this year. I think they're winning in the 6 to 8 range, which means, look, if you bet 7.5 over, you're going to need 8. I don't want to do that. And I certainly don't want to lay minus 150 on over 7.5 with Tampa, but I don't really want to rush to take them under 7.5 either, because I could see this team being an 8-9 team this season. So when I look at it, it's no bet for me on the win total. But if I were to take another division future, I like Carolina as far as a division future shot more than anything in this division, just from a value standpoint. And I really, truly believe because of the overall weakness of the NFC South, Carolina is one of those cases that can go from worst to first in one season. But if I were to take another shot with a team other than Carolina to win the NFC South, it would be Tampa Bay, which you can get right now at plus 300 currently to win this division at the moment. So there you go. That is my look at the NFC South. Hope you enjoying this week the NFL division previews. Again, we will have one more division preview tomorrow. Tomorrow is our last show before MLB returns on Friday. And it's perfect because we can get the fourth and final NFC division preview on the show tomorrow, and that will be the NFC West. So we will take a look at the NFC West tomorrow on the Thursday edition of Bet with Bobano. I will have the CFL Week 7 edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy posted and uploaded to the channel within the next hour. I recorded it earlier this afternoon with former Saskatchewan Rough Rider, CFL receiver Chris Getzlaff. He was a great guest, and we will be and he'll be joining me to help break down CFL Week 7. I will post that within the next hour. And a reminder, one last time before I give you the best bet for the show today, all the subscriptions are available. 6 months all sports discount at Dub Club. By the way, this is valid all the way through until August 24th, the first day of the college football season. So you still have plenty of time to get on board with this. 6 months all sports discount from $400 to $250 US. And I know there are people waiting until August to sign up, until August 1st, at least, when the season win totals and futures report is posted. And I get why. And also, if you wait till August, your subscription, 6 months all sports, will run until February. And that pretty much means you'll get the entire NFL playoffs as well and the Super Bowl if you wait that long. So again, this offer is valid till August 24th. 6 months all sports, 400 down to 250. And again, great results in the NFL and college football. Last season, you'll get the rest of the CFL season, NHL, NBA, college basketball, a good chunk of that season as part of the 6 months all sports, the rest of MLB and more. So again, 6 months all sports discount available. And then the birthday promo code discounts are available through the end of the weekend for Dub Club. 1 month all sports discounted $39 off. 3 months all sports discounted $39 off. And 1 year all sports discounted $39 off. Again, 39 years old for me this past Sunday. So that's why we made it a $39 discount offer with the birthday week promo for Dub Club. And of course, if you're the Dub Club subscriptions are the full complete card on a daily basis, but there's also a more economical subscription option now available at SoBet, and you see the link on the screen, $9.95 per month. And with this subscription, you will get strictly my top plays and best bets daily in each sport. It will not be the full card, just a shorter card isolating my handful of few top bets and strongest opinions for that day in each sport. So again, for that subscription, that's at SoBet, and it's $9.95 per month. All right, best bet. Carolina Panthers over 5.5. No, we're not talking Florida Panthers this time. We're not talking hockey. We're talking football Panthers. The Carolina Panthers over 5.5 wins. I actually think they can get to 6 wins, this team. I like the coaching hire. A lot of this is, taking a little bit of a leap here with Bryce Young not being as bad as he was last year, that there is better in him. And I think a better O-line in front of him will also help this year. It will also help that this division is a steaming pile of shit, quite honestly. So that's going to give Carolina a puncher's chance to improve and be better this year. So let's go with the Carolina Panthers. Over 5.5 wins, minus 130. That is going to be my best bet for this Wednesday edition of Bet with Bobano. That's a wrap. Hit the like button on the way out. I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Wednesday night. Bet like Tony Soprano. Bet with Bobano. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you again tomorrow on Thursday for another edition of Bet with Bobano.